Hello, beautiful people. You are welcome back to the channel Ikems. Well, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more contents coming your way every week. In this video, I will be talking about why so many African leaders are quietly supporting Putin or Russia against Ukraine. When the United Nations voted recently on whether to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the votes were pretty overwhelming, but some countries abstained, especially in Africa. It is true Nigeria and Kenya voted against Russia, but altogether, 18 other African countries refused to condemn Russia, including South Africa. Russia has been making inroads in the region of Africa, whether it's through defense, diplomacy, or media. And there was this fear, perhaps by diplomats of African countries, of compromising that growing relationship with Russia. But there is also the issue of gold. Mind you, it's not the gold that Russia is hovering up in various countries in Africa and taking it back, which protects it against the sanction that the Western countries are imposing. A lot of commentaries just look at the fact that Russia's relationship with various countries, whether it's Sudan, where it is establishing a naval base, and also in parts of the gold mining industry in the Central African Republic, where it has established mercenary presence in some of the gem mining sites, or even speculations in Mali that Russia could be getting concessions from some of the gold wealth, that Russia's relationship with African countries is extractive and exploitative. But there is some growing support in urban areas. We have seen pro-Russian protests, specifically at the time when the conflict broke out in Ukraine. Part of it could be because of the perception that Russia is not just an antithesis of the West, but is bringing a sort of kind of is liberating African countries from Western support or from Western dependency, given defense agreement, and it is giving arms to African countries. The biggest purchase of arms from Russia is Africa, and much of this is coming out with the peg of concern about human rights. It is very affordable, it is very available, and the arrangements that come with it is ultimately very questionable. But it suits some of the people who are in power. For instance, in Sudan, where you have the deputy general who has been a proponent of Russia or Russia's presence in the mining industry as well as in the defense. And there is an element of anti-Western feeling, a sense that Russia is not a colonial power. Technically, Russia did not colonize any African state. And even during the time, the Cold War and the post-independence movement, Russia was credited with being able to still give some of the diplomatic, economic, and as well as security support to emerging governments. There were a lot of exchanges at this time. There were also educational exchanges. A number of leaders, if you could look at the Mozambican leaders, or even in Southern Africa, key leaders did study in Moscow and came back and have been embedded in government institutions for a long time. So there was a way that it played a positive role at that time in strengthening some of the elements that enable governance in African countries, and at the same time presenting a different force compared with the West. Do you feel that Russian position is making progress in Africa as a whole, or have the pictures that we are all we've all seen from Ukraine rather giving Russia a pushback? I don't think so. It feels as though Putin is both trying to show himself not just against the West, but also to show that there is some influence within the continent of Africa. It is a continuation of these historical links, this sort of sentimentalism that comes from the post-independence or the Cold War movement, and showing that some sort of economic benefit, even though it seemed to be exploitative, and also sort of entrenching a foothold, whether it is in defense sector and showing that it can be a reliable partner. So, in a nutshell, or in conclusion, there is a growing support for Russia in Africa as a continent. About 80 to 90% of Africans are in support of Russia or Putin. Reason being that, like I said it earlier, Russia is never a colonial power. Russia did not and have not colonized any country or any African country. I'll put that. Rather, Russia has been kind of giving support for the African countries to stand up for their independence and be less dependent on the West, which is why you see citizens in Africa are leaning towards the East, supporting of Russia and China as well, than supporting the West, because they feel like the West, each time they come, they try to impose their own ideology, trying to define what is human right for us, which is once is against some of our cultural and traditional beliefs, and we tend to push back. But when China and Russia comes, they do not care to get involved in our domestic politics. They offer our leaders what they want, and that they get it, even though some of our leaders seem to be corrupt. But there's corruption everywhere, even in the West. So let's look for ways to manage our own corruption the best way we can. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ikems. Thank you, and stay safe.